Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Down the Slope. We are back for a very, very special reaction podcast because just in the last I say, hour and a half, the news is broken that Sir David Gray is the next individual to take up the Hibs managerial hot seat. He's been announced in a 3-year contract. I'm sure you've all read the news and I'm sure you've all got an opinion on it, but I have assembled a very last minute lunching sort of. I was going to call us sort of the football equivalent of loose women because we're on at lunchtime on a Thursday afternoon. But I'll allow you to make your own puns up about that. I've got Dave, Jeff, McBee, and Leon with me this afternoon. I'm not going to ask you how you are, gents, in the interest of time. We're just going to get straight to it. Dave, quick summary of your feelings and your reaction to the announcement this morning.
I'm very well, thanks for asking. How do I feel? I'm reasonably delighted. How's that? Right. My feelings were if David Gray wasn't going to get it this time, then he was basically never going to get it, and he would have to have left and gone elsewhere and all the rest of it. So I think he's a positive appointment. I think it gives us a level of continuity. It strips out a lot of the work that any kind of fresh manager would have to do and getting to know the squad and getting to know the issues. I think he's lived and breathed that for a good wee while now, so he knows all the positives and all the negatives for the club at the moment. So all in all, I think it's a sensible appointment and one that should allow us to invest a bit more in the playing squad. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Leon, same question to you. I saw you eating, that's why I asked you right at that exact point.
I had to get off mute there as well because you heard my crunching for days. I'm delighted. It's a great appointment. Exactly just what Dave said. I mean, he's been in there working on the inside scene everything for 5 years, whatever it's been, or he's been there, sorry, as a coach. And I think, like I said, it's not going to be as big an overhaul maybe. See who's but no idea what he thinks a Hibs squad should look like, and you'll Ken and players there that he's want to keep and what wants to and the quality he wants to bring in. I think it's one that the fans will definitely get behind if we get a few results in. I think it'll the momentum shift. Sorry.
We're losing you a wee bit with the sound, Leon. It's sort of coming and going a wee bit. We've got the gist of it. And I think what you're saying overall is that you're happy that you can make an initial sort of assessment of the squad based on the fact that he knows them, he's been around for some time. Jeff, is that the biggest positive that you can see with the Gray announcement? Or is there something else that you'd really call out as being the biggest upside?
No, I agree. It's a bit of continuity. If he was taken on as coach when or whatever his role was when he finished playing, and he's now moved into the manager's role, it shows a semblance of continuity, which we've kind of lacked possibly in previous appointments. Maybe there wasn't anyone within the club to take it on. So yeah, I'm delighted. I think, or has been alluded to, he'll be the cheap option. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it saves money for elsewhere. I think somebody said that, maybe yourself. And he knows the squad inside out, absolutely. And the only worry is that he doesn't be too loyal to players that really have to move on. But I don't think he will be, because it's his job on the line. When it's your job on the line, you tend to have less loyalty towards your mates, like as I know in a previous life. So I'm delighted that they've made the decision now. It gives us a bit of time, a lot of positivity on the message boards, on social media. Bit of investment as well. All we need now is a player or two or three or four.
Brilliant. Maybe this was always going to happen, wasn't it? He was always going to become manager one day. The story arc demands that he was going to be manager. Is now the right time?
Without a doubt, this is going to be the guy who's going to be the first to have captained Hibs to a Scottish Cup win and then go on to manage Hibs to a Scottish Cup win as well, mate. So note that here and now, without a doubt. Listen, I'm absolutely delighted for him. I think one of the words that's missing here so far is actual stability, right? And I think that is crying out at this club right here and now. We're desperate for it. So from my point of view, He demands instant respect given what he's done in his time with the club. He doesn't have to cultivate new relationships with staff, hierarchy, etc. as well. It's probably the first bit of smart recruitment we have done that should be, on the face of it, relatively risk-free. Now, the question marks will be around what's his philosophy around football, in terms of how he sets up his team, how he wants his teams to play, etc. But I think it's one of the first smartest things that the club have done for a long time in relation to the football department.
Stability is something like we've clearly not had a great deal of stability in terms of the sort of managerial and coaching positions over the last number of 5 years. Does he bring greater stability by the fact that Tui will potentially get more time than your average other candidate would? What do you think?
You would hope so, but he's also been there when we've had success, relative success as well, beyond the cup win. And all of us, I would imagine, have worked in a scenario where we're faced into managers, and from being in amongst it, you look at it and you go, I'll pinch a bit of that. That's worked for them. I've responded to that. Most of the time, I think most people look at it and go, I've never made that mistake. I've never do that. And I think given the fact he's had 3-4 people now that have been at the helm that have been exited, I mean, what more grounding do you have in understanding, what did the club look like when we were successful versus the shit show it's been over the last 4 years now, nearly.
So it's a good point that taking someone from or taking something from each of the I suppose the failed managers of the past, if you want to call it that, and certainly the 3 most recent appointments you had in the managerial seat. Dave, if you were going to take something from each of the last 3 managers, what's maybe the one thing that David Gray could take from those appointments that you could bring into his role?
Not Lee Johnson's trainers, anyway. I would take nothing from Lee Johnson, nothing at all. What do you take from the others? People will disagree with me, right? But I was actually starting to really enjoy the football of Nick Montgomery, right? And he's put piles of stuff up on LinkedIn since, and Sergio's put piles of stuff up just showing and explaining to people who didn't see it how they were trying to play football, right? It'll be interesting to see if he takes that on board and moves with that, or he goes to a more rudimentary Scottish way of playing football, right? I think there's a huge amount of fans that would want me to go back to that, just make us hard to beat, make us solid, get rid of the frills, get rid of the playing out from the back. And I'm sure a lot of people would be happy with that. Personally, I wouldn't, but we'll see what happens. And I'm trying to think who before that. I mean, he wasn't there long enough to get anything from the lad that's now at Wigan. And then from Jack Ross, you get satirical elegance. So, I mean, I imagine that the first thing David Gray will do is a way to get his account at Reese sorted out so he can get some new gear. David Gray strikes as a man who's probably going to wear a tracksuit on the sidelines.
I think so.
I don't think he'll ever change that. But it would be nice to see him turning up in some really nice clubber on day one and just, putting down that levels. That's the levels we're looking for.
I could see David Gray being the sort of manager that gets the suit on for the cup final and goes straight back down the tunnel to get back into his tracksuit, stand beside the pitch. I think it's the sort of manager he'll be.
Exactly that. Listen, I think he's got a hard job ahead of him, right? You look at that, but so much staff turnaround required, like player turnaround required. There's a huge amount of players you need to get rid of. There's loads that have already left as part of their loan deals. He has to be on it, and that's probably why him being there already and seeing where the deficiencies are in the squad is going to help us, because between himself and Malky, they'll already have everything written down. I don't think there was much of a recruitment search in all this at all. And I've read the stuff from Malky today as well, saying a very thorough search and all this kind of stuff. Nah, there's not a single thing leaked out with the club about other people being interviewed and all the rest of it. This has been the plan, I think, from the minute Monty was leaving, right? They've sat down and said, right, okay, let's get some stability. let's actually look at what we need. Let's plough some money into defence and let's like take it from there. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks as we see players coming and going.
Nice one, Dave. Raymond, good afternoon and welcome. I can see you're unmuted, so I'm hoping that you're there and you're able to talk to us. I've asked each of the guys so far their sort of initial reaction to the appointment. Can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, I'm not aware. I'm still on mute, am I?
You're on good.
No.
We can hear you loud and clear.
You can hear me. Okay, right, good. I've not heard what everyone else has said. I've just come in just now, to be honest with you. I caught the tail end of what Dave was saying there. Kind of agree with him. I think that this has all been in place. I think Malky's probably been there for a good few weeks before the official start date, let's put it that way. And I think he's been working away in the background. I would also think that McDermott's been working away. He's been looking at players. I'm quite happy with that, actually. If you consider the players that McDermott has brought to the club, I'm thinking about someone like Jordan Abita. If that's the standard that we're looking at, then I've got to be happy with that. We all know that the issue lies at centre half. You know, we've just got rid of our best one. So where do we get a left-footed centre half? There's like hen's teeth, you know. So we need a left-footed centre half. We could probably do a right-sided centre half as well to help Rocky along. Other than that, I think where else? You could argue centre forward, but I think Dylan Ventus had been very hard done to.
No, I think there's a lot for the two of them to work through over the next few weeks in terms of the squad and the shape of the squad overall. One thing that's a bit of news that we've not touched on yet is there's been some additional investment made into the club by 3 shareholders, and I'm going to be honest, my understanding of what's going on is relying entirely on someone else's interpretation of the announcement today. So I'm leaning heavily on a friend of ours his interpretation of that particular announcement. It does sound though like that will help to perhaps further enhance or at least mean that the playing budget for this season coming is not impacted by I suppose on-pitch performance this season. So it sounds like there'll potentially be more money than there might have been available to play with in the summer. I say play with because it's felt like we've probably been playing with our money for a few summers now rather than being serious about it. Leon, just in terms of sort of areas of the pitch and that David Gray might need to address, are you sort of on the same page as Raymond that centre defence is where we need to focus, or defence overall is where we need to focus the money first of all?
Definitely. I mean, the spine of the team, essentially, which is quite worrying. I think we're definitely going to need a new goalkeeper. I think we're definitely going to need a couple of centre halves. You could even argue we need a couple of centre midfielders, and we definitely probably need a couple of strikers. And if players like Eliuan leave, we're going to need a bit more creativity. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but I do believe it's doable. I think Malky Mackay's got healer connections, really good connections. I think we're in a strong position financially to compete with other people in this league for players. And I think that having the new young manager in, David Gray, I think, I'm not saying players will want to definitely come and play for him, but I think he's the kind of guy that could inspire you very easily. Where a chat about why you want to come to this club, why do you want to play for me, why do you want to progress your career at Easter Road. And I'm quite excited now that he's the manager, and I'm actually quite excited about the transfers that we're looking to maybe make. I think if you sell Eliuan, £2.5 million, whatever, I mean that's no funding anything apart from new players on top of money we've already brought in, the new investment today. I think we could be in for an exciting time in the transfer window, like.
An exciting time, and it feels like it's going to be. We've had 2 pretty big announcements today by 11 o'clock this morning. It feels like it's going to be quite a summer of announcements with quite a lot of comings and goings. Jeff, a first team squad of, let's say, roughly, or at least first team age players, roughly around 40.
Yeah.
There's clearly some fat that needs to be trimmed in terms of that squad. Where would you set about first looking to sort of and probably not picking on individuals because we try to avoid doing that. But we're in the squad where you'd be looking to maybe trim off some of the numbers to allow us to bring some real first team quality in.
I can't remember which pod it was, but they went through each area: goalkeeper, defence, midfield. How many central midfielders do we have? So there's an easy one. Probably
I think it was 14, Jeff.
Yeah, we could probably get rid of about 10 central midfield, and some of them are pretty good, but maybe just not what we aspire to at the moment, or they've had their chance. And I mean, people like Noah Kenna, he played a few games, didn't look bad, didn't look, fantastic, but has he improved enough? He's playing for Liberia. Is he somebody we should be keeping on? So there's a lot of fat around the midfield that can go, definitely. I'm stating the obvious. Defence needs. Let's build a team on the defence, like all the good teams do, and then work back from there. So midfield, and then free up some of the budget. I don't know if we'll end up paying off some of the players' contracts, do some mutual thing, use some of the money that we've got just to get rid. I don't know, but yeah, that's midfield's the obvious one to me.
Is that maybe I mean, we've all been pretty effusive in our positivity around the appointment. Is that maybe the one con with the David Gray appointment, is that he might be a little bit, shall we say, inexperienced in terms of managing a large squad and the expectations that are involved, and actually maybe inexperienced in terms of building a team future, because he's just been, ultimately when he's had a caretaker position, he's just been given a set of players to work with.
Yeah.
Is that maybe one potential drawback you'd see?
It's a potential, but if it's been mentioned before on this podcast that you pick up all the good things from the people you work under, and see how they built teams. So Jack Ross built a good team. I mean, it was a good team. We didn't get a chance to see it properly, but 50-odd goals between the front three. Defence was pretty solid. We never lost a goal from across, apart from the cups, which was a bit fucking calling, but there we go. On that particular season. So David Gray will have picked up on that. You say nothing from Lee Johnson, hopefully. So yeah, it's a risk, but I'm confident that he's level-headed enough to ask for advice from Malky, and Brian McDermott. He's got two. All right, we've all got our personal opinions about one of them, but put that to one side. They are experienced, and it's good to have that. When I dealt with going back to my previous life, we had a number of dead people out West Cumbria, shall we say, and I got a lad up from down south to sit on my shoulder and guide me through what I was doing in my role, because he dealt with the cockle pickers in Morecambe Bay, 50-odd. So little things like that. So where to ask. He's got Malky and he's got Brian. So yeah, I'm quite happy that he'll do okay.
I think that's it. He's got good people around him. The one thing, and I'm sorry if I've not seen it, it's been communicated. One thing that's not being communicated is about his backroom team yet. Any sort of, I'll just throw it open to the group. Any names that you would like to see involved or included as part of that backroom staff?
Dolan.
Oh, as in John Dolan.
And apparently we are trying to get him.
Right.
But he's with is it Accrington Stanley just now, I think, as a first team coach.
Accrington Stanley.
But they're on that'd be no do at all. So that's his first choice. Him and Liam Craig is the noise. And who's the goalie coach? Samson.
Oh, that was here before under Jack Ross.
Aye, so he's after him. I think he's really pally with Liam Craig as well. So I think that's the three that people are talking about. I would have no issue with any of them, to be honest. I think they're all good shouts for those positions.
Dolan, good shout. I love him. Yeah,
he's a really nice guy when he was up here as well, and I think the players all liked him and respected him as well. So that would be a good addition, I think, if we can get him.
We're getting the band back together, and it's got that sort of vibe.
Definitely, yeah.
I bet it goes back to what I said, boys. What did success look like?
Aye.
So replicate it.
Yeah, I would say I think we're making a conscious effort to have a Hibs identity back, a proper Hibs identity that guys that know the club, know what it means to win derbies, and what the supporters would expect. And I think they're trying to get that to just permeate through the entire club, and they do that from the coaching staff, from the top.
Absolutely. It is going to be interesting because none of us actually know what David Gray's football is. right? Because he always came in as a caretaker, and he's always said, I don't have time to change it. So it'll be really interesting to see what he does from day one. Does he completely change it? Does he start playing 3-4-3? Does he 3-5-2? You know, it could be completely a different world of what we're doing now. We just don't know. So I'm buzzing for the new season already.
I think we're going to see progression. I think we're going to see a bit more fight, and I think the players that we sign will probably be reflective of that.
Could you look at the managers he's worked under? I mean, like Stubbs like three at the back. Obviously, I think Lennon played with three at the back all the time as well. And I mean, Stubbs and Lennon's style was quite similar to an extent. Obviously, Lennon went a bit rock and roll with it, tried to go absolutely getting all guns a-blazing for 20 minutes, a half at times, and then whereas Stubbs would obviously a lot more try to control the match. And if you can get anything close to the sort of style of play they done, a mix of that, you'd be absolutely delighted, I think, because it was a style of play that everybody sort of recognised with Hibs for a while as well. So we actually did have a wee bit of DNA in our play, and I think that's what we're after now. Like you were saying, getting Hibs folk in and getting a identity in the staff, and sort of be able to relate to who these people are, and we've all known them, we know who they are, we know what they've contributed to Hibs before as well.
I think that's spot on. I think with Gray's Hibs teams up until this point, I think there's two things that stick in the mind for me is when he took the League Cup final team against Celtic. I think he said in a conference pre-match conference that one of the first things he did was pick up the phone to Jack Ross and ask him for advice. I think we'll see certain styles or certain, I suppose, traits from certain managers that will be more prominent than others, and I think we will probably move back to more of a sort of style of play that we saw under Jack Ross, and that's nothing other than really, I suppose, leaning into that comment quite a lot. But also, Jack Ross was, I think, the one who first started deploying Josh Campbell in that sort of role off the striker, which suggests to me we'll probably move to being a slightly more workman-like team who focuses more on the work that we do out of possession than the work that we do in possession, and might make us maybe, I don't want to say more attritional, because I think that maybe sounds like it'll be hard to watch, but I just think it will be a bit. I think it'll be a bit of a departure from the football that we've been watching under Montgomery, to be honest.
League, Liam, more suited to the league.
More suited to the league, possibly. I think that's absolutely fair. I think it will be a bit more horses for courses as well. I don't think we'll be maybe quite as rigid as we were at times under Montgomery, because I think that's one of the things with hindsight that you look at where potentially we were maybe just a little bit too rigid, and Gray will be able to do that horses for courses thing because he will understand the opposition that we're up against. He's got 4 or 5 seasons now of being in the dugout watching us play against these teams. So I think it'll be really interesting come 13th of July to see how he sets us up in that first game, because it is now 5-6 weeks away from the first game of the season. It does feel like it's kind of there's a lot of work to do obviously between now and then. So with that in mind, I'm going to go around to each of you and just ask what you think. Just to summarise for us, what do you think is sort of? I'll ask for 3, but if you want to just focus in on 1 or 2, you can. As first 3 priorities in role, I'll start with yourself, McBee.
So his first priority needs to be momentum, and there's spin-offs for that. So he needs momentum in terms of his recruitment, because clearly we need players. Clearly we also need to be exiting some as well. And off the back of that, he needs momentum in terms of performances and results pretty early doors, because he begins to struggle. We all know how, regardless of who this is, we all know how impatient the Hibs support are. And then the usual will happen where it will be, get him out, this was a cheap option, inexperience, everybody that's, got their hands to the phone that are saying, oh, back him, but will be retweeting their positions for where they were today. His second priority will need to be, I think, to maintain my last point around momentum and results. I think you need statement wins, probably, against the Old Firm and Hearts, and then you'll need them pretty early doors as well. And then lastly, I think I said it at the beginning, right? We just need to be stable, and I think that's another priority he needs to bring. So all of these things are actually a mismatch each other, to be honest. So although I'm making it 33 points, they actually are all one and the same. If you know where I'm kind of coming from. All right.
Yep, absolutely. Got you. Leon?
What Andrew said, and essentially I think his first priority is obviously going to be building a squad that he's happy with. He needs to build a squad that he thinks is going to represent how he's want to play as well. It'll not take long for a small percentage of the fan base to turn into a bigger percentage, because we're very volatile, and I think everybody's a wee bit. And I didn't blame anybody, I didn't at all. But I think folk need to understand that these things will take time. But I don't think David's going to have as much time as he probably should have. So, like Andy was saying, results, early doors, statement wins. But I think, like you were saying, again, and what Andrew said, the momentum, building a momentum, getting the feel. I mean, that's just due to the comms of the club as well. They need to get some kids to work out who they're signing, make a couple of decent signings. Build a set that, but the way they structure the signings and announce the signings and getting a bit of momentum building that way, win comfortably the League Cup games at the top of that group, and then go into the league and just look comfortable, win games, and just build the momentum and get everybody behind us. And I think it's the one thing we need is a bit of momentum to get this fan base going, I think.
Brilliant, Leon. Raymond?
I think both the lads before have echoed pretty much my sentiments. I mean, it's hard to disagree, isn't it? Win derbies. If you can win some derbies, you're going to get people inside. Beat the Old Firm. The Rangers and Celtic. You get people inside. He wants to get the crowd inside, and he wants to get people in the stadium, getting that place rocking. Yeah, and if we can have that, if we can gain that, and as McBee says, momentum. Yeah, so that comes from winning games. We're going to need to be making some good decent signings. I think we need to get people salivating at the thought of watching some of these people come and play for us. We've lost. We're going to be losing good players. We're going to be losing Eli Yuan, the guy that a lot of people love to hate. I don't quite understand that. We're going to be losing Maluda. We're going to be losing a lot of decent players that have been there, all right, that hadn't performed to where we wanted them to be. But under David Gray's tenure, who knows? Let's see how we're going to play and what we're going to get. As I say, I think we're going to get more players that are a bit more fight about them, a wee bit more oomph. I think we're going to see a busy team like Nathan Mariah Welsh. I think he's going to play a big part in the team. I think guys that can get around the park and close people down. And we're not going to have possession all the time. We're going to let other teams have possession a little bit more. And we're going to break, which is going to require pace. Is Boyle still going to be there? Are we losing Boyle and Ewan? There's so many questions. So we need to be signing players. We need to be filling these positions as quickly as we can. And thankfully, I think that we've been working on that already. We've got, as I say, we've got Malcolm Mackay, we've got Brian McDermott. They've been working presumably in the background, been working with Bournemouth and probably other teams in the group. So the Lorient as well, possibly. Who knows what can come of this? But it's exciting time. Let's enjoy it.
Superb. I like those words. It's exciting times, and thank you also for setting a Guinness Book of World Records there for the number of rhetorical questions in one.
Not actually on yourself. It's
100%. Dave, priorities from you. If you've got anything different from the group, feel free to share them.
His number one priority. I want a night out with the coaching staff for the foundation thing, right? And every time I've been trying to organise it, it's been put off for various other issues. And then obviously we sacked Monty and all his other coaches. So his number one priority is to get on the blower to me once he's got his backroom staff in place, and then arrange a very nice restaurant, not Gusto, where he can take us all for dinner and spend some lula on us. That would be lovely.
I can cut.
And then he's for me, and I've said this about every manager we've had for God knows how long, just beat the bottom six consistently, right? And get an occasional win against the Old Firm, get decent performances and occasional wins against Hearts. That's all fine, all the rest of it. But just be consistent against the bottom six, and you'll be third and fourth every season without fail. The amount of points that we've lost over the last 3 or 4 years against bottom six teams that we've actually, dominated but not put away, right? I like the idea of changing to a team that actually gives up a bit of possession and fights for the ball and wins the ball back further up the pitch and all the rest of it, rather than just holding on to it all day long, right? So, yeah, let's see that change. Let's see a team that learns how to win dirty when they have to, and then then you'll see it. We'll all be a top 3 or 4. We just need that. I think we've tried to change too much, and we are not in a position to change the way that Monty maybe wanted us to. So let's see what we can get by being just a little bit more industrial. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? And just high intensity, and then take it for there.
Jeff, anything to add?
I want him to be a lucky coach, please. I think Monty was unlucky in certain games, no matter what you think. Stop losing late goals, please. That's another thing. And somebody mentioned about giving up possession. I'm all for that. If you look at very quickly on some stats from last year, we were only Livingston were below us in retaining or regaining possession in the opponent's the opponent's third, our final third, if you like, which shows that we weren't pressing, and we scored zip goals when we did get the ball up high and we got it early. So that surprised me that every other team did better than us in that particular stat. So anyway, yeah, I just want him to be his own man, take the advice, but just get the fans back on board. Stop us being a bit of a laughing stock amongst certain commentators in the Scottish media. And I'm looking forward to the new season. Really looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Me too, actually. Do you know what? And I feel like I didn't feel like I was going to feel like that about this season, if I'm being honest. I was going into the end of last season, and even some of the stuff that happened in the couple of weeks following the conclusion of the season, I was pretty downcast, I'll be honest. But today, I don't know. I feel like today is a bit of a reset moment for us. It's an opportunity to reset. Hopefully, the activity of the summer will help us to reset. We've clearly, brought in some new people into the football department as well, which, will give us an opportunity to potentially clear the decks. And I feel a bit more positive about going into this new season with a manager who knows the squad that he's working with, who doesn't, I think it was you that said a while ago, maybe, he doesn't have to give everyone a clean slate because he's made that assessment already. I'm sure he's got it jotted down somewhere on an Excel spreadsheet, much like the one that we knocked up a couple of months ago, saying here's who I'd keep, here's who I'd bin. So I think going in there with that foresight will be helpful. And I think he knows what needs to be done. I mean, I think the priorities, as you laid out, I think everything that everyone said so far has been eminently sensible. I think the priority for me is that centre defence, goalkeeper, probably still the number 6, and potentially a centre forward, depending on whether or not David Gray thinks he can work with Dylan Vente. I think that's a big question mark for me. If he thinks he can work with Dylan Vente, then I'd be more than happy to go into the start of the season with him as our starting number 9. But if he doesn't, and we need to bring in someone who can play maybe a slightly more industrial sort of style, I think that needs to be looked at as well. So that's where my priorities would lie. But I think ultimately the most important thing is getting off to a good start in League Cup group stages. And I think if we get a fixture list, much like the one at the beginning of this season was, to be fair, that's fairly kind to us to begin with, just to help build a wee bit of momentum, I think that would be helpful. I don't think you want to play, for example, Celtic, Rangers, Hearts or Aberdeen away in the first couple of games. I think you want to get we'll be away first game of the season this season, I would imagine. You probably want a slightly kinder away team. So that's kind of my hopes, that's my dreams, that's my aspirations. I think we all feel like we're in a better place as a result of today's announcement. Anyone got anything they want to add?
No.
Yeah.
Hibs. Indeed.
Lewis Miller for captain. Get it.
That's plenty.
Captain
We'll be back in the next couple of weeks once we've got some more news to talk about. We've got some new signings in the door, and now that the positivity is back around Easter Road, we'll be back with you with some smiling faces. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Cheers.
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 Cheers.